What I wish I would have known my first year starting in insurance was a couple things. First, I wish I would have known that there's a lot larger of an industry than what I'm looking at. Because when I started, it was essentially a call center. It was 21st Century, which was owned by Farmers Insurance. And I was put through a training class. There was no thought or second research that I did, probably my fault at the end of the day. And I got into there and it did great. I actually made, I think 80K my first year. It was 60 technically, but it was only 8 months of work. My second year, I was making 80, 90,000. Third year and fourth year, it was close to the 100 to 120,000 a year. And it was awesome. It was amazing. The problem was I was working my butt to the bone. I was working 80-hour weeks half of the time and then 40-hour weeks the other half. So it was on and off. There was a commission based. So I'd make big commissions one month, lose them the next month, make commissions. I wouldn't necessarily change it. I just wish I would have known to start researching the stuff that I know now, which is marketing plays the biggest factor. That's why those companies hire you as a call center, because there's no renewal commission. And eventually our agency will probably turn into that, because that is where the biggest profit is. But at the end of the day, we currently focus on growing a book. And when you grow a book, you get renewals. So the work that you put in today and tomorrow and the next day pays you the following year and the following year if you can retain the business. Having that knowledge of the industry was very important that I found out later on. And I wish I would have known that going into it, because I probably would have been a few years further along moving to where we are today. The other part is, if I would have known how simple it was to do other types of business, what I mean by that is if I would have gotten into life insurance, don't do any of it now because it's just not a focus, but it's a high paying income. I would have taken it on, paid some of the expenses, and then grown a different book on the side. Getting the experience was the more important piece, and I think I wouldn't have changed that. I'm glad that I did that, and I figured out some of the tricky ways to do insurance. That was because we weren't insurance people, we were salespeople, and it was, how do we trick the system? How do we get someone to buy? How do we one call close every single phone call? But when I shifted from that, going from one company, many states, to going one state and many companies, that was a way bigger transition than I expected. So going into an independent agency, I didn't realize how much more work multiple companies were in one state. And then on top of that, later on, we ended up going to multiple states with multiple companies. It's not that difficult, and you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just have to be honest. But being able to create the relationships and grow that was something I wish I would have learned previously. So time management, because I am still horrible with time management. I do everything at once, as much as I can, as fast as I can, to where even a few days lately, it's been a little bit, not overwhelming, but there's just more stuff to do than I have time to do. And it's prioritizing. Now that I'm learning that piece of it, I wish I would have learned it even younger, even though it didn't impact the previous job to where you were a call center, because we just logged in, picked up the phone. There was literally a phone call every 5 minutes. And so we were just pitching someone right then and there. The third, fourth, whatever number we're on piece that was very important to me is partially what I did by accident. And I created a YouTube channel called Think Insurance, and that was designed to help people understand. I had just a drive to make content, and I liked to make videos, and I was like, okay, well, I'm learning insurance, I might as well talk about it. The better I got at that, the more I realized how that alone could build a business. And that's what it's turned into today, to where the majority of our leads come from that channel, where it's educating clients. It's talking about the different changes in the industry, companies that have good coverages and the difference between each company, the telematics, and all of those things that customers are searching for. I now create content around, which draws people into our agency. Inadvertently doing that has allowed me the options to go off and create an agency. Now, I probably wouldn't have done the partnering thing if I were to do it again. Even though that wasn't necessarily a bad move to make, it was a good thing to happen. And some of those things are more the background pieces that I would change. But knowing all that, I don't necessarily think I had to know ahead of time. It was more so just the industry knowledge of what's available. Understanding what a network can do for you, what working for an agency can do for you. There's different benefits. If you go off on your own, you're on your own. You have to get your own lead. You have to pay your own bills. You have to do all those things. We're paying thousands of dollars to rent a space just to get on the phone, because 99% of our customers never come in. So I technically could work in the basement and not pay the extra cost. but it's not the type of agency that I'm trying to grow. For me, I wish I could have started as an agent in an agency like we have now because of the pay scale that we're offering down the road, where there is different options for you to grow into. I do wish that I never got into technology because it has strayed me so far off the path. I love the automation and I'm really good at it, and I love designing websites and I'm decent at it. More lately, we've hired a virtual assistant that can do those pieces where they can create the automation. And we've even outsourced it for other people to where they'll pay us a fee and then we go and have the person do all the building and all of those things. So that's been cool to see. And there's some really cool stuff that they can build. But I wish I would have offloaded that ahead of time. Knowing that the ability to outsource and get through those hurdles of dealing with offshore clients and people that are going to help you build things, it's a lot of work. It's a headache. It's not something that most people want to do. And for me, because I have that drive to do that, I wish I would have gone through that headache beforehand so I got where I'm at today to where we understand the majority of that. For most people, this isn't necessarily a wish that I had because I did already plan this ahead of time, is I am one that doesn't like to spend the money. Don't get me wrong. If I could buy a Ferrari and I could afford it, I'd be driving a Ferrari. Probably not. I'd probably be driving a modest car. But if I could afford the nice TVs and the nice of everything, the new Apple iPhone every single year, I made videos about that when I was younger. And I do like the technology. I like all of those things, the shiny objects. Those don't do much for you when you're growing agency. It's relationships, it's growing, it's referrals, it's new business. All of those things coming in, obviously retention and those things and mailing out. Again, you can outsource all of that if you have the funds and you build it correctly to where you start off with you growing. If I would have grown my book first and then hired agents underneath me that took some of the income away, but the income was coming in to where I could afford it. If we're not spending the money, we can afford those pieces to happen. The problem that I ran into, which is something I've probably always will struggle with, is I'm valuable to a lot of people for little things. And those little things to some people are big things, but the income doesn't follow with that. So if I build a CRM for you, which by the way, I built a free one for you guys because I got bored and I wanted to give something away because I know agents can't afford it when they're starting off new, and it's something I would have wanted to grow into. Yes, there's the cost. You got to use the phone, so the phone would cost you the minute usage and the texting usage, all of those things. There's still a cost to a free version, but I'm not paying it. If it's free to you, you got to pay that bill. And having the knowledge and the ability to take a photo and make it into a logo, to build a Facebook page really professionally and build a YouTube page really professionally and organize photos for Google reviews and all of those things, and creating automation emails and responses that you should expect. And all of those things that I'm good at now, I would have said no to in the past and learned as I went based off analytics, not knowing the knowledge by learning it the hard way. At the end of the day, all of this would have been fixable if I had known the industry ahead of time, started my own agency about 2 years prior, built my book on my own work, which would have technically passed the whole hard market thing. So I still would have had all these carriers. And yes, it still would have been tougher, but then I could have hired an agent to 2 agents to be underneath me to grow it with me, and then hired a service person and hired an IT person. And we really would have slowly built an agency up from nothing. Those are the ways that if I was new, I wish somebody would have told me and helped me understand that that's the process. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me know what you wish you would have learned before you had joined this industry. If you've been in this industry for a while, whether you're selling life, health, home, auto, commercial insurance, any of those pieces, that yes, they're all different categories and they're different ways of selling, but essentially you're doing similar things. You've got to get clients, you've got to grow a book, you've got to try to outsource pieces, or you're just busy like everybody else and there's just not enough time in the day. I'm Mark W. Flockhart. I'll see you soon.